Alrighty folks, there is me waiting for the clock to tick, and then Wayne sends me a private message on Facebook. So, but it's still 18:30, so we're all good. Evening folks, how are we doing? Before we get cracking on, let me give a big shout out to, I never remember that, my patrons that I need to give a shout out. Let me give a quick shout out to Reese, thank you very much, and also a shout out to Tim and Wayne. Thank you. Without you, these shows wouldn't happen. And so we're here. Don't forget, it's a Conquest show. So, hashtag, I did it again. The hashtag BofOPS Conquest is up there. And so you can get your, and again, you can get your pictures on the slideshow going across there. You also get a shout out on my Instagram story if you happen to get it on Instagram. Wayne, wink, wink. So, Conquest magazine, The Librarian. I'm really looking forward to this one. He didn't mean to distract me. He's private message. He still private messaged me there. Right. It's all good. It's all good. We have our usual suspects in the chat as usual, so thank you very much. And if you do join us along, don't forget to drop in the chat. And if you're watching in the future, don't forget you can still send a message about what you see in the show. Feel free to do so. Or you can check the links in the description and the links in the chat, where you can find me anywhere you want. Right. Okay, I've had another message from somebody. I need to have a look at that. What is that? Okay, right, okay, so I've just had a message from somebody warning me about a hacker not to accept it. Okay, it doesn't matter. Anyway, that was a bit of a distraction. That's a proper distraction, that was. Right, I'm looking forward to this magazine because we have the Primaris Librarian, which is all, if I think correctly, with the exception of issue number 1, this could possibly be the most value for money magazine that I've done on this show so far. A £22.50 model for $7.99 with the magazine, with the exception possibly of the first issue, which we'd already figured out was what, 20 odd quid's worth of stuff for $1.99. So, you know, but I'm looking forward to this. But I do have a concern about this model, which we'll get to when I get to it later. Don't forget to jump in on the chat if you've got any questions as we go along. You see I've got my folder just to the side. So now that we've got those, these shows are going to become kind of a case of, we'll go through the magazine, we'll put it in the folder, we'll have a look to see how the folder's looking at that time, you know, what kind of information have we got in it. Any models that come with, we'll build the models, we'll have a look at the models, and when we get new paints, if of the 2 models that I'm doing, if any of those paints need put into those models, that's what we'll do. And I think that's the kind of format we'll go to. If anybody's got any suggestions or comments, again in the chat, or if you're watching in the future, contact me any way that suits you. Lieutenant Calcius. Well, apart from the fact that he's not available to buy separately, so we can't really use that as an example, but Primaris Lieutenants tend to retail about £15, so even then it's still not as expensive as the Librarian, Primaris Librarian. Waiting 15 minutes and you're still too late. Never mind, Tim, thank you very much for joining us. The Libby has gaps. Yes, there are some things that I've got to worry about. I'm gonna have a look at while we're putting them together, and I'm doing very fine, thank you, Tim. So yes, we're gonna get on with this, and we're gonna have a look at what we get in it. So as usual, I haven't opened it yet. It's the first time I ever look at these models, these magazines, is when I'm live on air, so if something surprises me, I'll actually be surprised on the stream as well. So there are some concerns that people have been showing about this when they first came out, but we will have a look at that when we get to it in the future. But first of all, as usual, we will have a look at the magazine, and well, we can all pretty much see the front cover. So what we're going to learn about what librarians are and so on and so forth. Front cover we don't need. So we're going to get rid of that. And so we're going to go through the magazine as usual, and we start with Space Marine Librarians. The second character for the Space Marines in this Conquest magazine so far. If you're already a player, that might not be an issue, but you know, I think I was talking to you, Wayne, I don't know if it was last week or at the weekend. This Conquest magazine again seems to be, you know, steered towards the Space Marine players winning. I mean, what's that all about? You know, surely we want, you know, you want new players to kind of get a feel for everything. But at the minute, it looks if you don't play Space Marines, you're not going to win. But anyway, that's a rant for another time, I think. So, Librarians. So, Space Marine Heroes number 3. We'll have a look. Let's just have a quick look here at where we're looking at here. Is we're looking for Space Marine Heroes, and I did just have a look there. We had a Space Marine Heroes number 5 there. So this one, remember, I think I remember saying this last time, is that we need, this is going to start slotting in somehow. We got chapters 2. In fact, actually, Space Marines Heroes number 5 is the first one we've got so far. Space Marine Heroes 5. 5.1 to do with lieutenants and Calcius. So that's quite interesting. So we're going to be going backwards in time. So I imagine in the future we're probably going to get any I tell you what, Tim, I'll bring it back, just bear with me a second. So I imagine that the very first thing we're going to get, if the Librarian is number 3, I reckon number 1 is going to either be Chapter Masters, which we might have to wait for a long time for that, because we're not going to get one, or even Primarchs, which we're not going to get with the magazine. We're going to have ranks such as Chaplains, which we're going to get, and Captains, at least, is going to be in there somewhere, I imagine, before Librarians as well. So that's going to be interesting. Did I spot some non-metallic metal on the cover? The sword, it's gone. No, that's the sword is wet blending, which I can't do yet. There's no non-metallic metal on there. As a rule, GW tend not to use non-metallic metals for their publicity shots. But wet blending they do have a tendency to do. Although that is achievable using glazes and layering. But that's not non-metallic metal, no. Yeah. So, yeah. You think it was at the Weagles? Yeah, I think it might have been. While we were having a chat before we started. So, Space Marine Heroes number 3, Librarians. And who are they and what are they and what's it all about? So there we go. Now again, I haven't read any of this yet, so I don't know what's already in it. Librarians often stand alone, even amongst their own battle brothers, because that is something actually that the Librarians tend to be shunned a bit, don't they? So, Space Marine Librarians. So I'm going to pop that into the magazine, into the folder where it belongs, just in front of the page for the lieutenants. And some more war gear discussions going on here. I wonder if we can find it in here. This is war gear number 3. What do we have in war gear? We have, it's funny actually, this Reaver war gear is war gear number 1, which is interesting. I would have thought it would have been a bolt weapon would have been war gear number 1, considering that's the staple, but they seem to have gone straight into the more specific stuff. So just after power weapons, this will fit, and just before all the death guards start. So we got the force weapons, which is solely used by the Librarians, I think. Magic, yeah, and magic is heresy. And some very, oh look, the Rod of Tigerius. It's Tiggy's rod. Look at that. Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines. An Ultramarines 4 stave crackles with psychic charged enemy, and then down to 4 swords. I know, I keep saying this. They really do push these Ultramarines, don't they? Even when it's not necessary. I mean, I've discussed before about how it's fair enough that Games Workshop need to have a poster chart. They need to have a single focus point so that people can, relate to it. But I'm interested that they give you the Rod of Tigerius, which is an Ultramarine specific weapon. For the Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines, which is fair enough. Use that single point of reference for people to kind of notice. But why, rather than just using a standard force stave for all of the Space Marine chapters, they've specifically stated an Ultramarine force stave, and then four staves, four swords for everything else. I just find it really interesting, and you can kind of see where the hate comes from. Well, it's not excusable, but it's kind of noticeable where it stems from when it gets pushed. But force weapons, which is interesting enough. Now, obviously, I'm not going to read out all the pages and so on and so forth. That's what you pay your money for. You don't need me to read it out to you, and all that. Oh, and the psychic hoods as well, which is where this focuses the power. They've already got the psychic power, but the psychic hoods will there we go. The librarians can channel their power through a psychic hood to counter the psychic power of their enemies, which is actually one of the hardest things to do when you're trying to kit bash a model. If you're not using a librarian model as a base, is trying to find a psychic hood that will fit, especially if you're trying to kit bash your own Mephiston. GW have always used Space Marines as their poster boys. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, they do. I mean, any company, it's just good business to have a focal point for your customers to gravitate to, and that's fair enough. I mean, Reese knows I've got nothing against Ultramarines as a whole. It's they're just plastic toy soldiers. Yeah, Ultra haters can hate away, absolutely. But what I don't understand is that when it's not necessary, give us the like I said, give us the Ultramarine focal point, which gives us the if you're brand new to the hobby, give you a focal point. That's fair enough. But then also, the other weapons are generic. But all the generic has a force stave. Exactly. That's kind of what I mean. But it's kind of, I think it's more along the lines of, for argument's sake, if you go out and buy a generic librarian from Games Workshop website, you've got just the standard Mark 8 Mark 8 Space Marine librarian. He has a force stave. That's fair enough, and it's painted blue on the website because it's Ultramarines is the focal point. But it kind of, when if you're talking about people wanting to go out and buy extra models, and they see the model that's got a force stave, and they've stated the word Ultramarines in there, it just puts that seed in your mind that perhaps maybe it's only Ultramarines that can use it. I've always liked Ultramarines, and now with Conquest I have a primary Ultramarine army. Absolutely brilliant. That's perfect. I mean, you wouldn't have to worry about spending all that time converting your Calcius then, would you? I will get him painted eventually on camera. I've got some things. This week I'm finishing off a commission where I can get an Astra Militarum kill team, and I've got another video to do. I've got lots of videos to make. Alright, let's move on from force weapons anyway. So that'll go tucked in just behind the power weapons on the magazine. And then we go into the 40k battles, which has been giving us lots of reading to do about the various fighting across the universe. And this is quite thick. Look, this next one is building the librarian here. We've only had a couple of pages, and this is it's got quite a bit of a mission on the back there, so I'm interested to see that. I still will, as I now have two. One needs to be Space Wolves. Well, I need to get that. No, I've done the video, haven't I, for converting him. So you know how to convert him into a Space Wolf. You just need to use different bits. It's easy enough. 40k battles. I'm not sure where the rest of the battles are in this magazine at the minute. I will get used to finding out where they come from. 40k history is in there. Where are the battles? Oh, it's at the back of the 40k. There we go. So we have 1, 2. We've already got 3 battles, so we're getting the Space Marine battles in order now, actually. And this one is the Defense of Valius, and this is an interesting one. The Imperial forces, no Ultramarines here, it's the Dark Angels this time. Now if I have a look back at the Space Marine battles that we've already had, if you just bear with me just for a moment. Oh no, it hasn't. I missed that last time. So the Imperial forces on 40k battles 1 was the Ultramarines, the Grey Knights, the Inquisition, so various other lots of Imperial forces together. 40k battles number 2, I missed this, was Raven Guard, and they did give us a picture of the Raven Guard on the back. If I just show you here, so that's interesting. Then we go back to an Ultramarine battle, and this one is a Dark Angels battle. So they are slowly starting to give us a look into the other chapters, although no pictures of models for this one. In the Raven Guard one, they gave us some pictures of some actual models, where you can, if you want to choose Raven Guard as your army for this magazine, you've got a little bit of a picture reference point to go by. On this one, we've only got a very, artistic look at to what the Dark Angels are painted like. Is that a good thing or not? I'm not sure. You can decide on that one yourself. And they're fighting the Demons of Khorne and Bloodletters. And no doubt, if we have a look through this, it will probably be a librarian-centric story to go with the magazine, and a little bit of an insight there on what Chaos Demons are. It's a shame. I think I mean, obviously I would say it was a shame that we're not getting any demons, but then you could argue that it's a shame you're not getting any Eldar or any other kind of stuff like that. I imagine this magazine could get a lot bigger if they wanted to start adding all sorts of different forces to it. We're going to skip over the building the librarian for now. So I'll tear them out and skip that bit for the time being, because we're not going to be doing that. And then we'll just have a quick look at how to paint the librarian. If we have a look here, we've got how to base, how to shade in the book. We've got Agrex Earth Shade, and then we go into the Space Marines 1, Space Marines 1, 2, 3, and the librarian is Space Marine number 4. So once again, we're still not priming the model, we're covering it in Macragge Blue, picking out the black. It's all fairly simple now, and on this one we're pretty much using every single bottle that we've got so far, with the exception of Death Guard Green, with the gold. Still very fairly basic. But what's interesting now is instead of painting everything and shading everything, we've got painting the blue as a base, the black, the Retributor armor, and then we'll shade all of that with the brown, and then move on to the other colors such as the Lead Belcher, and then shading that with Nuln Oil, and then leaving the Bugman's Glow unshaded, which is interesting in enough. If you know how to paint, you know that in the future we'll be getting a Reikland Flesh Shade, so it's starting to then teach you how painting colours gradually and shading them as you go along. So there is a process to the painting, as opposed to throwing the colour down on all of it and then trying to shade it all. So they're gradually, so after 8 issues you've now got enough paint to start painting as a process, as opposed to just throwing colours down, which is nice. It's I'm looking forward to see where they go with that. and I'm kind of curious to see how much paint and how in depth they're gonna go when it comes to getting the last model painted. You know, that last painting tutorial that we get is, I'm interested now to see how in depth they go. We know that they're not going to prime the model because apparently the base coat is a prime. You know, the Edict of Nicaea was never lifted by the Emperor. No, I've heard about that, yeah. I think it was you that told me, actually. It's interesting, actually, I don't think I saw any mention of the Edict of Nicaea. But I am curious as to wonder whether that's because it's a bit too in depth for the time being for new players. I wonder. We'll have a quick gander here, see if I see the words Nicaea written anywhere on the librarian page. Where are we? Which one was it? It was Space Marines number 3. There we go. Let's have a gander here. Nope, it doesn't look like there's any mention of Nicaea in there at all. Okie dokie. So, we're now going to start into the tutorial for mission number 7. Where is mission 1, mission 4, mission 6? So right at the back of the book. Now, I did mention last week actually that I think what I'll do is at the end of these magazines I may come back and do an entire series, one video at a time for each mission, and perhaps that might even open some collaboration efforts. Watch this space for that. But each mission will go through doing a whole video on just the missions and gradually learning the game. I mean, you guys that are watching this, you either already know how to play, perhaps, or you're going to be playing along with the magazine. But you know, in the future, everything's content after all, and perhaps we will build this up. So what we got on this one is a librarian versus 5 plague marines. Hell of a way to stack the deck. So what we're going to do here is, it's basically first one to clear the table by the looks of it. Well, it does, it literally says clear the deck. So we got the librarian versus the plague marines. Who's going to win? And just take out each other. But it does add the psychic phase, and it gives us the a very basic look at the stats. It gives us the smite power, and yeah, and then it gives us a brief overview on what the psychic phase is, and perils of the warp, not forgetting, don't roll a double 1 or a double 6 when taking your psychic test, otherwise you could screw yourself. How to play? Yes, just. Still need to use the rulebook a lot every game. Oh, absolutely. I mean, even some of the best players still need to use the rulebook occasionally, and I have to use the rulebook all the time. I'm terrible with trying to remember all the rules. I mean, 8th edition did kind of help, but then 8th edition kind of put me off the game altogether, so there's a bit of a double-edged sword on that one. Alright, so we're going to move back through the folder again while we have a look for the tutorial section, where it just tells us various tutorials about various rules. Tutorial number 9 of Falling Back. This is tutorial number 10 about the psychers, and about how to resolve psychic powers and so on. Interesting enough, we only have, so far reading this, we've only got the smite rule, so that's yeah, interesting. I mean, obviously they don't want to overload you with all of the psychic powers available to psychers on the first time you ever use them, I suppose. And then we can replay clear the deck with, as always, it increasingly gets more and more complicated. So if you replay it, after you've done it the first time, you played the Death Guard Marines and the Primaris, you then come back with 6 Pocket-Walkers and 2 units of 3 Plague Marines, taking on 1 Primaris Librarian and the Reavers. Please play it again. Help me convince William to play. Well, the thing is Kill Team is interesting enough for me at the minute. That's where all my funds are going. And we'll see what happens. The problem is with that 8th edition is chapter approved. It seemed like such a really good idea, and I bought into the hype as well. When 8th edition dropped and they said, yeah, we're going to keep up with everything, and we're going to keep up with keeping the rules up to date and making sure that we don't miss anything, and just generally be on the ball, which they have been, which is fair enough. Unfortunately, they're doing it in the form of a £35 book every year, which I'm not really interested in subscribing. I said to Reese, I think I'm not interested in subscribing to play 40k. Kill Team's good enough for me. Right. So yeah, we come back with a replay mission of mission 10, where we start adding slightly more complicated rules, and then some recaps of the weapons available to the various models, and it gives you a summary of all the rules so far, so it's kind of reiterating what they've already done. And then it does give you an extra warp power here called the Might of Heroes, to which, you know, not only have you got a smite rule that you can use to harm your weapons, and then we have the when you replay it, you can then use your librarian to help your, you know, the rest of your models, or certainly one of them. And then back on the Blight launcher again, it gives you an extra shot, because, you know, it's given you, you know, first of all it only gave you the 1 shot just to get used to the weapon profile. Now it's giving you the 2 shots that it's supposed to, and various AP values along with it. So every single issue gets slightly more complicated, which is good because it doesn't overload you too quickly. But then, you know, you've got to remember not to get stuck on a specific rule, certainly for now, because it could change in the future, especially with the profiles of the weapons. I mean, there's, you know, it's all well and good having one weapon that fires 1 shot, and then the following week it can actually fire 2. You just don't get hung up on those details. It's kind of a case of, it seems to be that as you play through these rule missions in the Conquest magazine, you kind of have to play it until you understand it, move on, and don't look back. Otherwise you could end up confusing yourself. So that's quite interesting. And we get to the end of the magazine, which is the usual: subscribe to Conquest magazine. I think we've had a discussion about this. I don't know if you can still subscribe from issue number 1, or whether you have to subscribe from 5 onwards now. I'm not sure. And drop into Facebook and get some help, and we'll have a look at what you can see coming up in the next 2 episodes, which is the ones that I do still have available. So we have some Poxwalkers to add to the 5-6 that we've already got, and then we have the the Mephitic Blight Hauler for issue number 10, which will be with this show in 2 weeks, and then by which time we'll be getting a new delivery, which most people, if you hang around on the internet long enough, you already know what's coming in those issues. But there we go. So before we move on to building the librarian and seeing if there's any issues with that, have we got any questions in the chat about what we've seen so far? Meanwhile, yes, I am too deep into Kill Team for help. I am hook, line and sinker for that. Absolutely. Sold. I sold my soul to Kill Team. And I quite like it, to be honest. So, interesting enough, Space Marines 1 was the Intercessors, Space Marines 2 is the Reavers, Space Marine Heroes 2 is Calcius. What have we got there? Space Marine 4. So, we haven't had Space Marines Heroes 1, which I imagine is going to be a captain. Let me have a look at this picture again, because as we start coming in with more and more models, we can kind of make a guess at what we're going to be getting in here, especially down here, and where they'll fit in with the folders. I still need to be convinced, no questions, but I agree the mags are looking better and better. They're starting to get pretty good, aren't they? I still need to be convinced to play Kill Team as well as 40k. That's a difficult one that I'm not sure even I could convince somebody to. But I would certainly tell somebody, if they're struggling with 40k, is that Kill Team is different enough that you should give it a go. Kill Team or 40k, Kill Team and 40k, that's alright if you've got the funds to do it. And yeah, if you enjoy 40k enough to not be interested in Kill Team, you know, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, if you go off of 40k like I did, Kill Team is definitely different enough to warrant checking it out. You know, it's not 40k, so you know, that's yeah, that's my half-assed explanation, I think. But I was just having a look here at what we've got to get through this magazine, and I've just been having a look here. We're gonna get the 3-pack of Space Marine heroes, which 1, 2, 3 captains, and then we're gonna get the Dark Imperium captain in Gravis armor. We're gonna have 4 captains by the end of this this magazine run. I'm sure you're gonna want to turn some of those into lieutenants, especially considering we've got one there from Dark Imperium. There's Lieutenant Calcius, and there's this second one as well. So we get 3 lieutenants, or lieutenants, depending on which side of the pond you're from, and 4 captains. That seems like a ridiculous amount of captains. Like I said to you, well, left guy's a chaplain. That one there, that one's a chaplain. But you got the 3 here. If I'm looking at this right, the 3 here. Where's me camera? That's upside down. We got. I mean, it's out of focus, so let me just see if I can bring on the focus a bit. Can I change the focus on that? No, that's not working. Let me just bring on the focus a second. Let's bring on the focus. Oh, there we go, just something like that. That one, and that one, if I remember rightly, are the 3. No, that's a Primaris captain, isn't it? But those 2 are definitely the Space Marine heroes. Are the bikers in the picture Primaris Marines on Mark 4 armor? Mark 8 armor, sorry. They're definitely Mark 8 armor Marines on the bikes there. Lieutenants, the HQs from the Betrayal at Calf box. Left next to the Ancients. Oh, is that where they're from? I thought they were the because you can get Space Marine heroes, can't you, from GW? Is that what they are? So that's a Cataphractii Terminator, obviously, and then that looks like to be an Primaris. That's definitely a Primaris captain, though, isn't it? That one there, which is the I'm not sure where that one's from. Don't forget the guys in green. Well, no, to be honest with you, I'm not forgetting those, but the difference being is I understand Space Marines. I don't actually know much about the Death Guard, but yeah, the army's definitely going to be mixed. But the problem is whether the you're going to have a decent spread. I just realised now that we're going to have like 4 captains, which is a little bit weird. Yeah, it's the generic Primaris captain, along with the Gravis Armour captain, a Cataphractii Terminator captain, and a Mark IV. Is that Mark IV or Mark III? The old captain with the fan on his head. Which is fair enough. I mean, it's a captain in all 4 different types of power armor that you can have. Or certainly the 4 different stat lines for a captain. But it just seems strange that you're getting an army that's got 4 captains in it. But I suppose when you consider the way that this is about, it's about introducing you. So yeah, they want you to have as many different types of models as opposed to thinking about how to build the best list out of what you've got. Use them as unit champions could do, I suppose. You could turn, you could kick bash them into different characters. Mark IV chaplain. Let's have a look here. No, there aren't any Mark IV chaplains on there. There's literally just the Primaris chaplain. Yeah, so that's interesting. Anyway, to have a think about. It looks like I may be getting up to at least number 20 in store. Well, they seem to be pushing back those goalposts, don't they, Wayne? Righty ho. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to have a look at the Primaris Librarian. Once again, they're telling us I give a shout out to Big Mech Danskov's challenge. He does a much more in-depth, he reads all of them, and he did point out that they're showing us this page here, which doesn't seem to make any sense. They're showing us a picture of the sprue, which we can kind of see here, so I'm not sure what we've done about why they've done that, and then basically telling us that there are numbers on each of the sprues, and using the assembly guide, and then follow the assembly guide to build the model. I'm pretty sure that could have been done, like he said, as one page in one of the books, especially considering the other side is just how to clip your models yet again. So yeah, so if you don't already know, that's how to clip your models off the sprue. So this is number Space Marines number 4. So I'll pop that in there because that's useless, because the one we actually need is this one here. Now this is the one we need to consider about what we want to do here, because we've not done sort of like sub-assemblies yet. So what we can have a look at this model, when you see the whole model's finished, this one has he's got a big cloak on there, and trying to get your paintbrush between his legs there to try and paint in between there at the back of the cloak could be quite difficult. So before we start seeing Stan Lee, did I say something and missed a reference? Oh, hang on, no, I've missed a chat. In some other news, Stan Lee passed away at 95. Ah, did he really? Oh, that's a shame. Well, I heard it here first. Ah, now I mean no more cameos. Oh, that's a shame. Right. Maybe they do this for the ones that pick up the model for their first time. Yeah, perhaps. So, we do need to consider what we want to do here about how we want to build this model, because of needing to perhaps do this in sub-assemblies. So we do need to read through the instructions here and just have a look to see where problems will occur, because it's not a push fit. So you can't just push it together and pull it apart when you want to paint it. You need to consider it. And to be honest with you, it's going to be very, very difficult to sub-assembly this model and still be able to paint it and build most of it up. You can do number one easy enough, and this bit here, but once you glue these two together, you're not going to be able to paint in there. And like Reese says, if we have a look, once we dry fit these, they're renowned for having a gap along the edge of the robes. So you do have a bit of a choice to make. There is something you could do to avoid all of that, is don't glue him to the base. And so when you actually paint this model, you could get underneath with a paintbrush rather than doing that, so that you can get the models done together. They do the same with all the painting guides. Drives me crazy sometimes, and can talk along with Peachy or Duncan here. Right, so I think I'm looking at these instructions now as I'm talking, and I'm just trying to consider how would I do this for myself. And I think the best way to do it is I'm going to build the model in its entirety, except I'm not going to glue him to the base, or if I do, I'm only going to use a tiny amount of super glue, much to something that Reese does often, is she'll build her models but only use tiny amounts of super glue between the joints, so that just a small amount of pressure and they'll just snap off easy enough. And I think that's what we're going to do. Now, one thing we do need to be careful with, and we'll see how it turns out as we go along. Lots of people were mentioning how delicate this blue plastic seems to be, especially when it comes to these tiny fiddly bits like these cables. A lot of people were saying they broke theirs and that the blue plastic is much softer. But I think we'll just have to see how that goes, and we will have a look as we go along and see if I come up with any issues. And as usual, any questions about what I'm doing at the time, feel free to jump them in the chat as well. So we'll get along with building this guy. And so we actually start with parts 2, 3 and 4, which are these ones here, because part 1 just glues to that assembly there. So we start with that first so that then can come across, which is what I will do first. Part number 2. Part number 3 is this one here. And part number 4 is the other leg. And what I do need to do now is, I haven't had it on because it tends to cause a glare, but I do need to add some light to where I'm working. And where is my knife? I still haven't found my brand new knife. The one that I lost shortly after buying it. So So I'm back to my old, I'm still using my old one that's getting covered in paint because of all the other stuff that I'm trying to do at the same time. It looks like I might just have to give up for a loss and just go buy myself a new one. I'll tell you what I would say about this green plastic. It certainly does feel more brittle. You know, the grey plastic seems to, I don't know, you can shave the green plastic with your knife, whereas this one seems to kind of crumble. Is that the right word? The knife doesn't really seem to want to glide through the plastic like it does on the grey plastic. It just wants to grab at it and chip bits off. It could just be a dull blade as well, which doesn't really help with my evaluation. But it does feel a little bit more brittle. I'm going to see if I can find a spare blade that I got with my new knife. I've got it tucked away down here somewhere. If I can find that, I'll try using a brand new blade. See if that helps. But I've got a bit of everything's all stacked up out of the way of the camera at the minute, which means my studio is a mess as usual. But I found the blade. Here it is. Oh, I've got a couple in there actually. I've got a few. So we'll change the blade and we'll see how that works. Ow! I just stabbed myself. That's helpful. Right. I know it's going to happen eventually. All of these live streams I'm going to do, I'm going to eventually... Oh, I dropped the knife. I'm going to eventually maim myself. Right. Yeah, we're good. Not today, Corn. Not today. Right. Just as I've done that, I've pretty much finished this bit. Oh, it does. Yeah, it does want to cut a bit more easier. Let's have a look, see what happens when we move on these blasted Primaris Marines. A mould line going right the way across the toe and up the shin, across the knee pad. An absolute nightmare. It's one of the things I absolutely can't stand with Primaris Marines. They've all got one. Right the way up the shin there. The trouble is with that one is if you miss it, it stands out like a sore thumb. And it really, really stands out. It's horrible. There used to be a time that they would try and at least hide the mould lines along the corners so that you can't tell, and if you do miss it, it's no big deal. You just take off the big chunks of plastic from the cutting of the sprue. I may even have a way now of looking into the future regarding Conquest releases in newsagents. Ooh, that would be interesting. So we all know what's going on. I mean, we're already 4 weeks behind, so... Well, with a brand new blade, it seems to be a little bit easier. But it certainly does... The blue plastic certainly does feel different to the grey plastic. It's cleaning up easy enough. Clean. Full week, yeah, exactly. Yeah, unfortunately, it's absolutely sod all we can do about it. I think we just have to I do kind of hope that people just stop buying it from the shops, but if the shops continue to sell it, it's just something we're going to have to deal with, unfortunately. I just hope that the subscriber only gifts make up for it, you know, that, you know, everybody else is going to be ahead of us, but, you know, our extra gifts are going to make it worthwhile. Like I said, not the next delivery, is it? I think it's the delivery after. I'll have the first premium subscription to open. Basically, I can see a list of future release dates with issue numbers. It goes to 20. Not sure if that's where it stops or if it's just the limitation of the screen I was looking at. Well, we'll have to see, I suppose. Whoops. So I'm going to start using, I've been using plastic glue a lot recently. So I'm actually going to use the plastic glue that came with the magazine. I wouldn't normally buy Citadel plastic glue, it's far too expensive for what you're getting. But it'll do for now. And we just need to start finding out where these go in relation to the model. It's got a bit more play in it than I would like. I'm not sure what angle that's supposed to be in. Let's see if adding this part first will help cement that into place. It looks like it might do actually. So that goes, aha, that goes there, that's nice and solid in there. This is the importance of dry fitting, is just finding out, especially with these monopose models, that, you know, you find out where the model fits the tightest, and that's where you want to start. I'm hoping I'll put this in there, and we've actually got a little bit of where the knee pad actually sits in there as well, so we could just add just a touch of glue there on the knee pad where it butts into the robes, like so, and that's going to be in there nice and solid. And then we can come back with this guy and dry fit him up to see if that helps with figuring out where this leg goes, which it doesn't really, because it still doesn't really want to sit in there solidly. Kind of get a good guess for it around about there, but a little trick when you're doing your legs is bring in the base. Even though I'm not going to be gluing him onto the base, I can attach that best fit and sit it on the base so that the feet sit on the base. And that way I know that his feet are where they need to be, so that, you know, the contact points are nice and flat, and so that I know his feet are at the right angle. So I'm going to leave that for a minute while I clip out the next step. Piece number 1. Clean this bit up. There's definitely something to this blue plastic. It certainly doesn't feel like the grey stuff. I just keep repeating myself over that now. As long as you work there, you'll check the list. That's alright. We appreciate your efforts. Okie dokie. So then, part number 1 just glues in to there. Which seems like the most ridiculous thing to have done. But anyway, right, so we've got a little tab on the leg there that goes into the back of the robes, and then it glues on the side there. So I'm going to add a touch of glue on the inside here. If I can block the tube, which I have done. I do have a lighter knocking about here somewhere. There it is. And here's a little trick. If you want to, I can operate a lighter and get rid of the plastic from underneath it. This stuff is flammable, as you can see. And then if you heat that up and squeeze the bottle, you can make sure that you clear out any blockages that you've got, and wait for it to cool down for a minute. Not painting at the moment, Tim. I'm cooking dinner. Well, I've got to cook some dinner in a bit. I'm hungry. Right. Whoops. Making sure it cool down. Right. We'll get another bottle of plastic glue at some point. It's not so finicky. Righty-ho. So, put a little bit of glue on there, and then a little bit on the inside here, where that will connect into there, and that will slide round and cover that there. A little bit of a dance to get that in. But there we go. Part number 1. I think we should be able to get a piece of a paintbrush down there. Part number 5 and 6 doesn't seem to make any sense to me. They've decided to give us 2 bits of a cloth. Oh dear. No, I don't understand this bit. So we've got a flap there. And that, for some reason, goes in there. No, the other way. There we go, like that. And all that does is gives us some weird flap thing at the back, for whatever reason they decide to do that for. Let's have a look at it. Bit. Get rid of those chunks there. My knife is really biting into this. It's taking off a little bit more than I would want it to, really. And then this goes in like that. Okay. So a little bit of glue back there, you off, Tim. Thanks for joining. There we go. Alright, Tim, yeah, you go rest up. Okie dokie. And then this gets put on there, like that. Now I hope that that hole is there for a reason. And yep. Alright, so what we're going to do now is make sure that we get some glue along this edge here, some glue along the ridge there, and along there, and pop that on there. This is where you have to make sure that is lined up there. There's a hole on either side. I hope it's supposed to be there. And on that side as well. This is where I hope that it's paid off that I've done it this way round. Is that I should be able to get a brush down there to paint him, and that should be all I need to do. Now, one thing that people have been talking about is about the gaps along the side there, and what some people have suggested is you get some sprue, you get some form of container, get some of this plastic glue and melt a bit of sprue down. Now, I've never done this before, so we'll see how this works. So essentially what you do is you're melting the plastic into the plastic glue, which is essentially what it is doing when you're building your models anyway, and you just melt it down. Now, I don't know how well that's going to work out. I hope it's going to work out well. So while we build the rest of the model, we'll just see what happens there. Alright, so we'll put that to one side and we'll get on with the rest of it. And my phone was buzzing at me. What was that? Alright, thank you, Reese. I didn't realise that. Yeah, the guy with the... I thought he was a captain, but the guy with the fuzz on his head is a chaplain. Thank you very much. I've only just seen that message. Okie dokie, so while we're waiting for that to melt down, we're going to pick up some... I see what the holes inside are for now. Number 10 is purity seals with a sticky out bit on the back. So we get these purity seals. Normally purity seals are optional, but with this model the purity seals are covering up the holes, so you will use purity seals. What am I doing with the pot with the sprue? I'm melting some plastic down. It's just some plastic with some plastic glue. I'm going to melt it down and use it like green stuff, only apparently because it melts down and it's going to be quite melty when it touches the model as well, is it can fill out gaps and stuff like that a little bit easier than green stuff can. I've never done it before, so I'm giving it a go. See what happens. Especially along the side here, which I'm not really sure is necessary, because there doesn't actually seem to be that big of a gap. They've lined up quite nicely along there, so I'm not actually sure I really need to do it, because once you've put the cape on, as long as those two line up, the two edges, if you just scrape them together, it's not really that much of an issue. Off Facebook. Got the idea of Facebook. There was a bunch of people were talking, I think they were talking about this model. You see there is a bit of a gap running along here that, you know, looks a bit unsightly, and if I shave that down I could end up going right the way through the side of the model. So I'll use a little bit of this plastic glue gunk that I'm trying to make here and seeing what happens. It seems to be taking its time to melt through the plastic, through the sprue, so we'll just have to see what happens there. Some people do the same thing with super glue and just use super glue as a filler. Now this is what people have been talking about, is that these cables keep breaking on them, but that comes off easy enough. Doesn't seem too much of an issue there. Always stupidly simple idea. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't considered it in the past. I think the problem with it, and possibly the reason why it's not more mainstream of an idea, is that, man, has it got an easy way to go wrong. You can really trash a model by doing it wrong. So you know, people don't tend to use it as a ideal idea. Off subject slightly, there's no such thing, but referring to the purity seal, what a normal kit would you, or do you ever paint parts of miniatures while still on the sprue? No, I don't. I don't paint anything while it's still on the sprue. I have done in the past. Painted. It was for a commission. But on the whole, there's really not anything that's necessary to paint while it's still on the sprue, in my opinion, because if it's so small that you need to paint it while it's still on the sprue because you can't hold it, you could probably paint it while it's attached to the model. In my opinion, I've not found anything that's worthy of painting on the sprue, not in all seriousness. Yeah, some people will do, but it's difficult to remove mold lines if you do it as well. So you know, if you paint on the sprue, you've probably got mold lines everywhere. Some people can get around it, but I've not found a way of doing it. I've managed to get the cables off without breaking anything. that. There. That's fine. Dollop of paint, dollop of glue, there and there. Seems to work fine to me. And then part number 9. I tell a lie, there was some things that I painted on the sprue. Painted a knight actually, and the armour panels, or at least I started them on the sprue. But I don't finish anything while it's still on the sprue. Did some base coating and a few blocking out a few of the details. But I didn't finish them while they were on the sprue because they needed, they needed clipping off and cleaning up. But because I painted the armour details separately from the knight itself, I wanted to keep them separate. So yeah, I have painted something on the sprue, but I don't do it as a rule. It's not something I would normally do. Still waiting for that to break down. Seems to take a long time. You can see how it takes a long time for that to actually break down. It's still a lump of sprue in there. It's just turning the glue blue. It's taking a long time for that to break down. We'll see if it actually works at the end. Okie dokie. So we've got some choice of parts now. There are 2 head options you could choose from, but we use the one without the helmet. Well, it's an interesting choice. I don't think I'm going to use, I think I'm going to put the one with the helmet on, I think. Right, so there's still some glue in here, a little bit wet from earlier. It leaked out from when I was putting the 2 sides together, but a little bit extra won't kill it. We're just going to make sure that that is in there nicely. This is a badly designed part, so I'm going to try and fit that into a hole I can't reach properly. There we go. That's gone in. At least I think it's gone in. Does he have his head to one side? Is that normal? Yes, it's fine. I love the fact that it says we use the one without a helmet here. Yeah, only the rest of it is the one with the helmet. It's the picture on the front cover that they didn't use one with a helmet, without the helmet. And then we can pop on the golden eagle thing that goes on the back that I'm really not sure why it's not already on the back. Just an unnecessarily small piece of plastic. Whee! Fingers all covered in glue, which I think I did. That's going to melt down a little bit. That's not going to be perfect ideal. It's an unnecessarily small piece of plastic to put on the back there. Really not sure why they did that. And number 14 is the arm with the sword. Too much into the blade there again. Trying to cut off the lug of plastic left behind. Righty-ho. So it's going to add a little bit of glue to the inside of the hole. This gets pushed on, so something like that. That's number 11 and 12. Again, why have they done this? Look, he's got his hand here, and why is that hand not attached? Something I have noticed on these newer kits as well, they seem to be an unnecessarily large amount of pieces. This hand could reasonably already be attached to that. I'm really not sure what benefit there is of having this in two different pieces. Not a particularly easily customized piece. As far as I can tell, there aren't any other alternatives than putting this hand exactly where I'm about to put it. If you don't put it on, it just looks wrong. And we still have the thumb on this wrist. It's not like it's the entire hand for you to be able to just put a gun on it or something. We still have the thumb attached to this hand. Maybe I'm just looking for things to complain about. The rest of the model seems to have gone together reasonably well. I don't really know what people were complaining about, to be honest. It fits together reasonably well. It had no major issues with anything breaking, or even the gaps are reasonably small. In fact, I'm only making this plastic glue slurry just because I've never done it before. Could do with a little bit going down the side there, but very thick in terms of plastic quantity to this plastic glue. It's thicker. Underdog Painting, thank you for joining us. Let's grab a little bit of this and just attach it to the model. I'm sure when this dries I can go back over it with a knife and just clean it up. Yep, Underdog Painting is also a member of the Wargamers Unification group, which I haven't actually added a, I think there's a link to that, I think, in the description. I think. I don't know if I've managed to get around to doing that just yet. Excuse me. 1,000 subs by the end of the year. Well, I'm already subbed, so I'm happy with that. I think I'd like to get to 1,000 maybe by the end of next year. I'd like to hit 100 by the end of this year. Right. I'm not going to add... It tells me to put some purity seals on the backpack here as well, but I don't think I need to. I don't really like the way that they look. What I am going to do is add the Primaris, the Librarius shoulder pad on this side. I'll grab me bits box in a minute, see if I can find myself a Blood Angel one for the other side. Reasonably happy with that one there. And let's see in my bits box, let's see if I can find a Blood Angel-y one. And then we're almost done for the show. There's a blood drop. We don't really want that one. Oh, look at that. That's a nice big one. Is that going to fit? Big wings and a blood chalice on there as well. That would be lovely. $100 is the plan. I'm sure everyone will help to achieve that. I hope so. It's all about getting the right videos out there and watched by the right people. But we'll get along. I've got some editing that I need to do actually, get some videos done. I've got so much videos already recorded. I've got enough videos recorded to last me until the new year. I just got to edit them. So let's just pop on this here, pop that on there to represent. Not exactly a major modification to the model, but it will all help make this model specifically mine, as opposed to a generic one from somewhere else. I've lost my proper super glue. Got a pot of super glue somewhere. What have I gone and done with that now? Normally I take a picture of the studio before I start streaming, but it's such a mess I thought, no, I better not today. Looks alright mess. And this is why I can't find anything. Can I squeeze out any from here? Or is it all... Oh, I squeezed that a little bit. That'll do. Just pinch that off the top. There we go. Lovely. Glue him down to there. And that will give me something to prime to. Boo, blood angel, Space Wars for the win. Well, you see, that's the thing, you already do the Space Wars, so, you know, I wouldn't want to get in on that action. So, there we go. Right, let's just pop this on here just for the sake of holding it. There we go. Right, let's bring this into focus nicely. He says, and then puts it well out of focus. Where do we want to stand? Here we go. We want to be here. Let's bring him. There we go. Let's have a look at what this model looks like overall. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Nice little simple modification, just so that it's nice and nice to have a look at. It depends on what it means to be a wolf priest, to be honest with you, Wayne. I think, you know, where's my knife to point things out? It's easy enough if you've got a specific wolf orientated sword. It should be easy enough just to cut there at the base of the hilt, or possibly above the hilt, to add, you know, like an ice looking weapon going on there. That obviously you saw was easy enough to add. It's just literally, instead of putting the generic shoulder pad on, it's just put that one on. In terms of heads, if you've got a Space Wolf that happens to have not much in terms of facial hair, because you'll have a bit of an issue with space going on down here, but perhaps if you've got some hair coming out the side, if you're lucky, you might just about be able to get some hairy stuff coming over here. Again, I don't know in terms of Space Wars about this shoulder pad, but again, this was a standard shoulder pad. And you might get lucky in terms of fur. Perhaps you could get something that would go with this. Oh right, you're dishing out. Yeah, so that's just, both the shoulder pads are fairly generic shoulder pads. So finding a Space Wolf type one will be easy enough. And then perhaps some cloaky stuff. You might be able to find something that would fit here if you're lucky, maybe with a little bit of shaving. You know, the plastic will melt as well, so, you know, a hairdryer, you could probably mould it to, you know, if you got some stuff on there, you could mould it to it. Shouldn't be too difficult to do that. Other than that, I don't know in terms of dangly bits and just changing some bits and pieces, whether you could get some of those fur tassels and stuff that they have. You could certainly add to it to make it look more Space Wolfy. It just depends on the bits box that you've got, depending on whether you could get him to be more wolfy. But yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. So, turn that off and let's come over here. That was fun. That was easy enough. overall, I mean, there is definitely something to what people say about the blue plastic being different to the grey plastic. But this went together with no issues. I've heard a lot of people were saying about, you know, they were snapping bits and it wouldn't go together well, and Reese even said that there's going to be massive gaps, but not from my experience. I mean, this went together really well. Whether this is one of those odd occasions where it goes really well. You've got that gap going down the side there that, you know, it depends on how you paint, I suppose. Oh, excuse me. Reese, I know, is renowned for painting in sub-assemblies and then putting everything together, and she's fantastic at doing that. In fact, one of her pictures just went across from one of her towel. But obviously, if you're going to be doing it that way and you've got a gap going down the side there when it's put together, that's going to be an issue. You're not going to be able to do it. Was this 25 years of Space Wolf bits? No problem. Yeah, exactly. There we go. When you've got that many bits. Yeah. So there's definitely something to this blue plastic versus grey plastic, but in all honesty, I don't think there's that much of an issue. It's not as big of an issue as I was thinking I was getting myself in for tonight. So I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think he's reasonable enough. Anyway, he's come out well enough. I'm quite happy with him. I'll be looking forward to getting him painted now soon. So I'm going to wrap up now. So if you want to get any more questions in the chat, if you want to bring any topics up in the chat, will be now while I just finish off rambling about, well, the end of the show. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I'm looking forward to next week's, which if oh no, there's Poxwalkers next week. A few more Poxwalkers, so we get them built. I might even get some more Poxwalker videos done at some point over the next week or so. I do still have him. He is still here, waiting to have his arm painted. And I do have a video. I realise that the only video I've done so far is the flesh. I do have a video of all the tentacles and the bone. That's recorded, and in fact that's half edited. I just need to do intros and outros and narrate over it, so I need to get on with some of that as well. We got lots of videos coming in, lots of videos planned. That's going to be an issue, trying to get those edited in time. So hopefully we'll get some of those done. And then we also have a librarian to paint, so I'll catch up, honest. So we'll get on with those. Don't forget, you know, it's Conquest magazine, so feel free, if you've painted any of your Conquest models, or if you want to show them off, feel free to post them on any of my social media in the chat, or that we're going to have, that's going to appear in the chat. And also, if you've got in the description of the channel, in the description of the video, you can find various links to the way you can find me on social media and my screen names as well, so you can post them. Use the hashtag #BofOPS. I did it again, I went that way, didn't I? Because it's on my screen, it's that way, but no, there it is, #BofOPS. Conquest, if you've got Conquest models, and you could have them appear just here, like this one here, which is the Blight Hauler, is it? And also, like Reese has done here, almost on cue, #BofOPS Live, which is the top one. If it's not a Conquest magazine but you still want to show things off, feel free. Don't forget, if you post them on Instagram, I can't save them, so I can't use them here, but make sure you post them to my Facebook as well, with your Instagram handle if you want to, and then they'll get put on there. Although Wayne doesn't have an Instagram handle yet. Look at that, it's almost like it's working out for me. So, you know, get on that, and you can get your watch. It all goes on my story and all sorts. Other than that, if you want to help support the channel and help build up to the new computer, or if you just generally want to help out, have a look at the Patreon link, is in the chat, and it's also in the description. Or if you just want to throw a couple of pennies my way, I think my PayPal address is down at the bottom there as well, so you can help out and possibly even get your name scrolling along there like Reese, Wayne and Tim do already. Other than that, I think that's pretty much alright, he'll sort it. Brilliant, there we go. Yeah, get it done. This is peer pressure at its finest. Alrighty then. Other than that, I think this is pretty much the end of the show. In the chat now, you can see where where all of my shows are going to be. There is no game tomorrow night with Reese at Chick Paints. That was last week. So this week is our off weeks, and we just have a game of Kill Team and play around with some rules and have a really long chat. But don't forget to catch us next Tuesday for our next live stream game of Kill Team. My next show will be on Thursday night, where I will start painting Gabriel Seth. Now, I'm having a bit of an issue with him. If you were watching on Thursday, I was having a bit of an issue with getting that to line up properly. So this week, I'm pretty much just going to be concentrating on his cloak, and because of that, I might try something a little bit more complicated that's going to take some time, and if you're all joining along for a chat, it should pass easy enough. I'm going to try and really layer that one up so it really gradually smooths. I did try that with the Mephiston model in one of the earlier videos for the Mephiston or the Imperial Death Lord that I did. So I'm going to try and see if we can layer that up into a nice gradient, but you'll find that on Thursday night, same time as tonight. Other than that, I think that's pretty much everything I have to say. So to everybody who's joined in tonight, Reese, Tim, Wayne and Underdog Painting, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you all for watching this one. Check out the links below. I'll catch you in the next one. Alright, Dara, when I find out which one I need to click. That one, I think.